My name is Victoria and Lawson. I'm 34 years old, and exactly 14 days after my coworker Claudia Brennan told HR I was dead weight that should be fired immediately, I walked into the Monday morning all-hands meeting as the newly appointed regional vice president, her direct boss. The conference room went completely silent when I entered. Claudia's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips, her face draining of all color like someone had pulled a plug. Her hand started trembling so violently that dark liquid sloshed over the rim onto the polished mahogany table. "Good morning, everyone," I said calmly, setting my leather portfolio down at the head of the table where our former VP used to sit. "I know this is unexpected, but I'm excited to lead this region forward." Claudia made a small choking sound. Her office best friend Jennifer grabbed her arm, whispering something urgent. But Claudia just sat there, frozen, staring at me like I was a ghost that had materialized specifically to haunt her. The promotion had been announced via company-wide email at exactly 6:47 a.m. that morning. 247 unread messages were waiting in my inbox from colleagues I hadn't spoken to in months, suddenly very interested in congratulating me. The base salary was $190,000 annually, plus performance bonuses that could push total compensation past $240,000. But the real prize? Direct authority over the entire sales division, including the woman who'd spent the last 3 years systematically trying to destroy my career and reputation. Before I explain what happened in that meeting and the 2 weeks that followed, let me know where you're viewing from and hit subscribe if you've ever had a coworker actively sabotage you while smiling to your face. To really understand why Claudia's face looked like she'd been slapped when I walked into that room, you'd have to go back 5 years to when I first joined Garrison Solutions, a mid-sized pharmaceutical sales company based in Minneapolis. I was 29, freshly promoted from an entry-level position at a smaller firm, eager to prove myself in a more competitive environment. The regional office had about 35 sales representatives spread across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas, all reporting up through team leads to the VP. Claudia Brennan had been there for 7 years when I arrived. She was 38 then, positioned as the unofficial queen bee of the office, not because of her sales numbers, which were consistently middle of the pack, but because she'd cultivated carefully strategic relationships with the previous VP, Martin Kowalski, and several key people in HR at corporate headquarters. She had perfected the art of looking busy while accomplishing little, of taking credit for team wins while deflecting blame for losses. My first week, she seemed friendly enough. "Victoria, right? Love that name. Very elegant," she'd said, appearing at my desk with a grande latte she'd picked up from the Starbucks downstairs. "I remember my first week here. It's overwhelming. If you need anything, I'm like 3 cubes down." I appreciated the gesture. Genuinely. The pharmaceutical sales world is notoriously cutthroat, and a friendly face felt like a lifeline. What I didn't realize then was that Claudia collected information the way some people collect stamps, methodically, obsessively, for future use as weapons. Within my first month, I'd confided in her during a lunch break about my difficult relationship with my mother, about how I'd put myself through college working night shifts at a hospital, about my anxiety around public speaking that I was working hard to overcome. She listened with such apparent empathy, nodding in all the right places, asking thoughtful follow-up questions. She made me feel seen. I should have known better. By month 3, I started noticing a pattern. In team meetings, whenever I'd share an idea or strategy, Claudia would nod enthusiastically, sometimes even take notes. Then, approximately 48 hours later, she'd present a remarkably similar concept to Martin, our VP, framing it as her own insight. The first time it happened, I convinced myself it was coincidental. The second time, I mentioned it to my boyfriend Marcus, who worked in tech consulting. "That's called idea theft," he said flatly. "She's plagiarizing your work." But proving it felt impossible. Sales strategies aren't copyrightable. And Claudia was skilled at adding just enough of her own spin, usually making my ideas slightly worse. Ironically, that direct comparison became muddy. The real problems started in my second year when my sales numbers began climbing significantly. I developed an approach focused on building genuine relationships with physician practices rather than the aggressive, transactional style most reps used. I'd spend extra hours researching individual doctors' interests, their patient demographics, their practice pain points. It was working. My quarterly numbers jumped from the bottom third to the top 10% within 6 months. That's when Claudia's friendliness curdled into something else entirely. "Wow, Victoria, another great month," she'd say in team meetings, her smile not reaching her eyes. "You must be spending a lot of time with Dr. Patterson at Hennepin Medical." A lot of time. The implication hung in the air, ugly and clear. That my success couldn't possibly be legitimate. That I must be using inappropriate methods to close deals. My colleague Ahmad, one of the few people in the office I genuinely trusted, pulled me aside after one such meeting. "She's threatened by you," he said quietly. "Claudia's entire identity is built around being the office insider, the person everyone goes to. You're showing her up without even trying." The escalation was gradual but relentless. Claudia started accidentally, leaving me off important email chains. Client meetings I was supposed to attend would get rescheduled without anyone notifying me. Reports I'd submitted would mysteriously go missing, forcing me to recreate them under tight deadlines. Once, a major presentation I'd prepared for a corporate visit had somehow been deleted from the shared drive the night before. Thankfully, I kept backups on my personal laptop, but the stress of that discovery at 11:30 p.m. had me physically sick. "It's sabotage," Marcus insisted after I came home in tears for the third time that month. "You need to document everything. Timestamps, emails, witnesses. Everything." I started keeping records. A detailed log in a locked Excel spreadsheet on my home computer, backed up to 3 separate cloud services. Every suspicious incident cataloged with dates, times, and any available evidence. I didn't know what I'd do with this information, but some instinct told me I'd need it eventually. The breaking point came during year 3, right after I closed the largest single account in our region's history, a $340,000 annual contract with a major hospital network that had been considered impossible to crack. The CEO sent a company-wide congratulatory email. My team took me out for celebratory drinks. Even Martin, our VP, who rarely praised individual contributors, called me into his office to shake my hand. "This is exceptional work, Victoria," he said. "Really exceptional. You've got a real future here." I should have been celebrating. Instead, I went home that night with a knot of dread in my stomach, knowing instinctively that Claudia wouldn't let this stand. I was right. 2 days later, an anonymous complaint was filed with HR claiming I'd offered kickbacks to hospital administrators to secure the contract. The accusation was completely false and easily disproven. Our company had rigorous compliance protocols, and every interaction I'd had with that client was documented and above board. But the investigation process was humiliating. I had to sit through 3 separate interviews with HR representatives, provide extensive documentation, and endure weeks of sideways glances from colleagues who'd heard whispered rumors. When I was finally cleared, the HR director, a woman named Patricia Simmons, apologized for the disruption but wouldn't reveal who had filed the complaint. "It was submitted anonymously through our ethics hotline," she explained. "We're required to investigate all allegations regardless of source." But I knew. Everyone knew. Claudia had been asking pointed questions about my hospital network deal for weeks, fishing for anything that might sound questionable. When she found nothing, she'd apparently decided to simply invent something. Ahmad confirmed it a month later. "I was in the break room when Claudia was on her phone," he told me quietly. "She was talking to someone, probably HR, describing concerning patterns she'd noticed about your client relationships. I couldn't hear everything, but Victoria, she was smiling while she said it." That image haunted me, Claudia smiling while trying to destroy my career and reputation. Not even having the decency to look conflicted about it, just pleased with herself for finding a new way to tear me down. The final 18 months before my promotion were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Claudia had apparently realized that direct sabotage left too obvious a trail, so she shifted tactics to something more insidious, positioning herself as a concerned colleague worried about my performance and well-being. "Is Victoria okay?" she'd ask in team meetings when I wasn't present, her voice dripping with false concern. "She seems really stressed lately. I'm worried she might be burning out." Jennifer, her closest ally in the office, would nod sympathetically. "I've noticed that too. She's been making small mistakes. Nothing major, but—" The small mistakes were either completely fabricated or the result of Claudia's interference. A missed decimal point in a report? Claudia had edited it after I'd submitted the final version. A client complaint about a delayed follow-up? Claudia had told that client I was out of the office for 2 weeks when I'd actually been available the entire time. My performance reviews, which had been stellar for 3 years straight, suddenly included concerning notes. "Victoria shows strong sales skills but struggles with team collaboration," Martin wrote in my annual review. "Several colleagues have expressed concerns about her reliability during high-stress periods." Several colleagues. Translation: Claudia and Jennifer. I tried defending myself, providing counter-evidence, asking for specific examples I could address. But defending yourself against vague accusations of being difficult to work with or not a team player is like fighting fog. There's nothing solid to grab onto, nothing concrete to disprove. Marcus could see what it was doing to me. "You're good at your job, Vic," he'd say, holding me while I cried in our apartment. "Your numbers prove it. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking otherwise." But numbers only mattered to a point. Culture mattered too. Perception mattered. And Claudia was systematically poisoning both against me. The situation reached its apex 4 weeks before my promotion, though I didn't know it at the time. I just knew I was exhausted, demoralized, genuinely considering whether I should just quit and find a fresh start elsewhere. The thought of facing another day of Claudia's smiling hostility felt unbearable. Then Martin announced his retirement. After 22 years with Garrison Solutions, he was leaving to spend more time with his grandchildren. The news shocked everyone. Martin had always seemed like he'd die at his desk. But apparently, a health scare had reordered his priorities. That meant the regional VP position would be open. That meant corporate would be looking at internal candidates for promotion. And that meant Claudia saw her opportunity to finally eliminate me as competition permanently. I found out what she'd done through Ahmad, who'd been copied accidentally on an email chain he shouldn't have seen. Claudia had submitted a formal written statement to Patricia Simmons in HR, documenting what she called a pattern of concerning behavior and performance issues that leadership has been too polite to address directly. The statement was 11 pages long. Ahmad forwarded me the portions he could access. He'd only seen the first page and a half before realizing the error and stopping himself from reading confidential material. But those pages were devastating. Claudia had compiled every minor mistake I'd made over 3 years, every project that had faced challenges, every client interaction that hadn't gone perfectly. She'd presented them as evidence of fundamental incompetence, with no context about the sabotage behind many of those incidents. The conclusion was explicit. For the good of the team and the company, I believe Victoria Lawson should be terminated. She creates a negative work environment, and her continued employment represents a liability. Fire her. She's useless. Those exact words. Ahmad looked sick when he showed me. "I'm so sorry, Vic. I thought you needed to know what you're dealing with." I thanked him, somehow keeping my voice steady, and went home early claiming a migraine. Once inside my apartment, I sat on the floor of my bathroom and cried for 40 minutes straight. Not gentle tears, harsh, body-shaking sobs that left me gasping. Marcus found me there when he got home from work. "That's it," he said, helping me up. "We're fighting this. You're not letting her win." "How?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "She's got documentation. She's got Martin's ear. She's got HR believing her narrative. What am I supposed to do? Show them the truth," he said simply. Show them the numbers, the evidence, the pattern. Show them who you really are versus who she's pretending you are. That night, I opened my secret spreadsheet, the one where I'd been documenting Claudia's sabotage for 2 years. I organized everything chronologically, created clean summaries with supporting evidence, compiled testimonials from clients who'd praised my work, gathered my actual sales figures which had consistently placed me in the top 15% of the entire company nationally, not just regionally. Then I did something that felt terrifying and necessary. I requested a formal meeting with Patricia Simmons and David Chen, the senior VP of sales at corporate headquarters. I presented my case carefully, professionally, without emotion or accusation. Just facts, evidence, patterns. I'm aware that concerns have been raised about my performance, I said calmly. I'd like to address those concerns directly and provide additional context. I walked them through everything. The idea theft, the sabotage, the anonymous ethics complaint that had been proven false, the email chains I'd been deliberately excluded from. I showed them my actual performance metrics compared to Claudia's. I provided screenshots of edited documents, time-stamped evidence of interference, client testimonials praising my professionalism and effectiveness. Patricia's face grew increasingly tight as I presented. David Chen took pages of notes, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you report this behavior earlier? Patricia asked. Because I wanted to believe I was imagining it, I said honestly. Because I was new and Claudia was established. Because I didn't think I'd be believed. Because in this industry, women who complain about other women are labeled as dramatic or unable to handle professional competition. David leaned forward. These are serious allegations, Victoria. I know, I said. Which is why I've been documenting everything for 2 years before bringing it to you. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to look at the evidence objectively. The meeting lasted 2 hours. I left feeling drained but strangely lighter, like I'd finally stopped carrying a weight I'd been hauling for years. Whatever happened next, at least I'd spoken my truth. At least I'd fought back. What I didn't know was that David Chen had been personally reviewing candidates for Martin's replacement for 3 weeks. My name had been on his shortlist before my meeting. My sales numbers and client retention rates had made me impossible to ignore, regardless of office politics. But Claudia's formal complaint had made corporate nervous about promoting someone with documented interpersonal issues. My presentation hadn't just defended myself. It had exposed a pattern of workplace bullying and sabotage that created serious liability for the company. More importantly, it had demonstrated exactly the kind of strategic thinking, documentation skills, and professional composure that corporate wanted in regional leadership. 1 week after my meeting, David Chen called me directly. Victoria, I'd like to discuss a leadership opportunity with you. Can you come to corporate headquarters tomorrow morning? I thought I was getting fired. I spent the entire drive to downtown Minneapolis convinced I'd miscalculated, that my complaints had backfired, that I'd just accelerated my own termination. Marcus had to physically push me out of the car when we arrived. You've got this, he said firmly. Whatever happens, you told the truth. That matters. David Chen's office was on the 14th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Mississippi River. He didn't make me wait or draw out the suspense. We'd like to offer you the regional VP position, he said directly. Effective immediately. Your track record speaks for itself. Top-tier sales performance, exceptional client relationships, innovative strategies that have driven significant revenue growth. You're exactly what we need leading that region. I must have looked stunned because he smiled slightly. Did you think we'd overlook your numbers because of one person's complaints? Victoria, we've been watching you. Your results are impressive. Your integrity is clear. And frankly, your documentation of the hostile work environment you've been navigating shows leadership qualities we value: attention to detail, strategic thinking, professional resilience under pressure. He slid a formal offer letter across his desk. The base salary was $190,000, more than double what I'd been making as a senior sales representative. The benefits package included stock options, performance bonuses, and a company car allowance. "I need to tell you something," David continued, his tone becoming more serious. "We're conducting a formal investigation into the allegations you brought forward. Claudia Brennan is being placed on administrative leave during that process. Depending on what we find, there may be significant consequences for her employment status. I wanted you to know that before you accept, because it means you'll be walking into a complex situation." "Will she still be in the office?" I asked carefully. "Initially, yes, though not for long if the investigation confirms what you've documented. She'll report directly to you as Regional VP. I understand that's awkward given the history." Awkward. That was one word for it. But I thought about all the times I'd wanted to quit, all the nights I'd cried, all the damage Claudia had done not just to me but to my confidence and peace of mind. And I thought about what it would mean to walk away now, to let her win. "I accept," I said firmly. The email went out at exactly 6:47 a.m. on Monday morning, marked urgent, company-wide. Garrison Solutions is pleased to announce the promotion of Victoria Lawson to Regional Vice President, effective immediately. Victoria will be leading our Midwest region and reports directly to David Chen, SVP of Sales. Please join us in congratulating Victoria on this well-deserved promotion. My phone started buzzing within seconds. Text messages, emails, LinkedIn notifications from people I barely knew. Ahmad sent a string of celebration emojis. Marcus called immediately, laughing with delight. "I knew it. I knew they'd see what you're worth." But I was focused on one thing, the all-hands meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. The weekly Monday team meeting that I'd attended for 5 years, usually sitting near the back, usually keeping quiet unless directly addressed. This time, I'd be running it. This time, I'd be standing at the front of the room. This time, Claudia would be sitting in the audience, watching me claim the role she'd wanted. When I walked into that conference room at exactly 8:58 a.m., the conversation stopped mid-sentence. 34 people were seated around the long table and in chairs lining the walls. Every single one of them turned to look at me. Claudia was seated in her usual spot, third chair from the front on the right side. Her face went through a progression of emotions in about 5 seconds: confusion, recognition, disbelief, then something like fear. I let the moment breathe for exactly 3 seconds before continuing with my opening remarks. "I want to start by acknowledging that transitions in leadership can be challenging," I said, my voice steady and professional. "Martin built something strong here over 2 decades, and I intend to honor that foundation while also implementing some strategic changes that will help us grow." I outlined quarterly goals, introduced new reporting structures, answered questions from the team. Claudia didn't say a single word the entire time. She just sat there, spine rigid, face pale, occasionally taking sips of water from a bottle Jennifer had produced from somewhere. When I dismissed the meeting, most people approached to congratulate me, shake my hand, express excitement about the new direction. Claudia was one of the first people out the door, moving quickly with Jennifer trailing behind her. Ahmad waited until the room cleared before grinning at me. "That was legendary. Her face when you walked in? I'll remember that forever." Within 3 hours, the consequences for Claudia began cascading faster than I'd anticipated. The HR investigation that David Chen had mentioned wasn't just a formality, it was thorough, aggressive, and comprehensive. By Tuesday morning, I received an email from Patricia Simmons requesting detailed documentation of specific incidents. By Tuesday afternoon, 3 other team members had apparently come forward with their own stories of Claudia's behavior, people I didn't even know had witnessed similar patterns. "She wasn't just targeting you," Ahmad told me during a private conversation in my new office. "Apparently she pulled similar stuff with others before. They just didn't document it like you did." Wednesday morning, Claudia was formally placed on administrative leave pending investigation results. A company-wide email went out at 11:30 a.m., Claudia Brennan will be out of the office on personal leave. Please direct all urgent matters to Victoria Lawson, Regional VP. The whispers started immediately. Jennifer tried cornering me in the break room that afternoon, her expression a mixture of defiance and panic. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice low but intense. "Claudia's been here for 12 years. She's given everything to this company. And now because of some personality conflict, you're having her investigated." I looked at her steadily. "This isn't about personality conflict, Jennifer. It's about documented patterns of workplace misconduct. If you have concerns about the investigation process, I'd encourage you to speak with HR directly." The investigation concluded in week 8. Patricia Simmons called me directly with the results before they were formally announced. "We've substantiated multiple allegations of workplace misconduct," she said. "Harassment, sabotage, misuse of company resources, and violations of our ethics policies. Effective immediately, Claudia Brennan's employment is terminated." 2 weeks after her termination, Claudia filed an EEOC complaint alleging discrimination and retaliation. The company's legal team assured me it was baseless, that our evidence was overwhelming. The complaint was dismissed 4 months later for lack of evidence. I never heard from her directly again. 1 year after my promotion, I was sitting in David Chen's office for my annual review. The regional numbers were undeniable. We'd increased revenue by 23%, improved client retention by 31%, and had the highest employee satisfaction scores in the company. 3 of our representatives had been recognized nationally for excellence. Ahmad had been promoted to team lead. "You've exceeded every expectation we had," David told me. "The board is impressed. You've turned that region into a model for what we want to see company-wide." As I drove home that evening, I thought about where I'd been 1 year earlier. Crying on my bathroom floor, believing Claudia had successfully destroyed my career, convinced I'd have to start over somewhere else. The universe has a strange sense of humor sometimes. Claudia had genuinely believed she was eliminating competition when she submitted that 11-page statement recommending my termination. What she'd actually done was force me to compile comprehensive evidence of her misconduct, to present my case to corporate leadership, to demonstrate the exact strategic thinking they'd been looking for in their next regional VP. She tried to bury me and ended up highlighting exactly why I deserved promotion. The woman who'd told HR I was useless had inadvertently proven I was exactly what the company needed. I don't hate Claudia now. I don't think about her much at all anymore, which feels like its own kind of victory. I focus on the work, on the team I'm building, the culture I'm cultivating. Ahmad asked me recently if I'd change anything about how things unfolded. It was hell going through it, I admitted. But it taught me things I couldn't have learned any other way. It taught me to document everything, to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself even when it's terrifying. 6 months ago, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference about navigating workplace challenges. I almost declined. Public speaking still triggers that old anxiety. But I thought about 29-year-old Victoria, crying in her car after another day of Claudia's cruelties, believing she was somehow at fault. So I accepted. And I told my story, not to shame Claudia publicly, but to offer a roadmap for anyone else trapped in a similar nightmare. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Your track record matters more than office politics. The response was overwhelming. Women approached me afterward with their own stories of workplace sabotage, of talented people driven out by those who felt threatened. Story after story of people who'd thought they were alone, who'd blamed themselves. "What you did was brave," one woman told me, tears in her eyes. "I've been dealing with something similar for 2 years. But you've shown me I can fight back. That evidence matters." Looking back now from my office with its view of downtown Minneapolis, I realized something important. Claudia didn't make me stronger. I was already strong. She just forced me to recognize and claim that strength. The version of myself that documented every incident for 2 years, that kept backups and screenshots, that finally walked into corporate headquarters and presented an airtight case, that person existed all along. Claudia's harassment didn't create those capabilities. It just brought them out of hiding. I'm not the villain in Claudia's story, despite what she probably tells people. I'm the protagonist of my own story who refused to be written out of it. Have you ever had a coworker actively try to sabotage your career? How did you handle it? Did you fight back or move on? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these battles is the first step toward winning them. Remember, your work speaks for itself, but sometimes you have to speak up for your work to be heard. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And never let someone else's insecurity determine your professional worth.